We've got the latest on the investigation into that fatal Andrews plane crash, including what qualifications the pilot had.
Officers of the Central Detective Unit bring one of their own here to the magistrate's court to face some serious charges.
Our news is brought to you by Alive, the nation's newest and best LTE network.
Good to be alive.
Welcome to our news, and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joachim. Topping news tonight, the team tasked with investigating that plane crash that killed 6 people in Andros last week says the pilot who was flying the plane was not certified to use flight instruments, a crucial skill when flying in bad weather. Jared Higgs reports.
Head of the Air Accident Investigation Unit at the Department of Civil Aviation, Delvin Major, says Darren Clark, the 42-year-old pilot flying that plane that went down off the coast of Andros last week, was privately licensed and his aircraft was registered in the United States. Along with his private license, Major says Clark was certified to fly instrument in a single-engine aircraft, meaning he was not certified to fly with instruments in a multi-engine aircraft, like the one he was flying last week Wednesday.
He had a private pilot license, he had multi-engine privileges, and he could have flown in instrument condition, but only in a single-engine aircraft.
Flying instrument refers to a reliance on instruments to navigate when visibility is severely impaired.
Well, instrument conditions, whenever you cannot see the where you're going visually by looking outside, you have to rely on the instruments in the aircraft, in the cockpit. And that is a special rating you would have to get added to your license, which would allow you to fly if the weather per se goes down, if the weather gets, the clouds come in or it's rainy, where you cannot actually see outside. That instrument rating would allow you to still fly in that weather by reference to those instruments.
Last week Wednesday, Clark took off from the San Andreas airport just after 8 in the morning with 5 passengers in tow. He eventually turned the aircraft around, and indications are that he flew in circles before the plane eventually plunged into the sea approximately 4 miles off the coast of Andros. The accident was the second in as many weeks, with the pilot and 5 passengers crash landing in Great Harbour Key in the Berry Islands on January 12th. 1 passenger received minor injuries in that incident. Among other accidents being investigated by the Department of Civil Aviation are a Pineapple Air crash landing in Eleuthera, as well as an aircraft that overturned in Freeport. 10 accidents from last year are also under investigation. In light of these incidents, Aviation Minister Dionisio de Aguilar announced a crackdown on this sector, particularly those who were not legally licensed to transport passengers for commercial gain, but do so anyway. Major says large workload is challenging.
I wouldn't say we're overburdened, but we do have a challenge with manpower. But we have been able to prioritize, and so it may take a little longer for a particular accident or incident to be investigated, but it's all in a time managed kind of way. So we're making do with what we got, but it'd be nice to have more.
Major says it's difficult to say how long the investigation will take. It could take weeks, it could take months, and of course, all of that depends on their own workload, whether or not there are any other air accidents to investigate. Reporting for our news, I'm Jared Higgs.
Thanks, Jared. Well, veteran pilot and CEO of Sky Bahamas, Captain Randy Butler, says he wants to see action after a pledged crackdown of the aviation sector by the minister responsible for aviation, Dionisio de Aguilar. Butler says the use of hackers or unlicensed pilots has grown out of control despite feeble attempts at enforcement. He says the perfect time to have interjected the industry was after a crash landing in the Berry Islands, which took place a week before the Andros tragedy.
Today we have incidents happen, and a couple. Days before this one, there was one where somebody crashed, and unfortunately everybody walked away. A great opportunity for the current minister to have done something and said, yes, we're going to deal with this today. All right? You have people over there. That goes back again to having credibility, even with the inspectors and the section that the public, aviation, public and industry would believe.
Butler lamented some local airlines who he says utilized unlicensed pilots when they aren't able to fill their larger planes.
You have some illegal airlines that are using these illegal operators too, where you would have purchased a ticket on these airlines, and sometime you would have done it through a travel agency, and that travel agency, and you come to the airport and to the main terminal, and they send you to general aviation, where you get on an airplane that you don't know, and as far as you're concerned, you bought a ticket on another plane. And that's something that civil aviation and the airport and all those folks are quite aware of. Why? I've written them about it and told them and called the names. And it's unfortunate that that continues.
A police officer was arraigned in the magistrate's court today on rape charges. Georgia Bain has details.
Former police constable Stefano Curry appeared before Chief Magistrate Joanne Ferguson Pratt in court number 9 to answer to one count of rape. It is alleged that on January 14th, while in New Providence, Curry, who is 24 years old, had sexual intercourse with a 25-year-old female tourist without her consent. Curry was represented by attorney Alex Dorset and was not required to enter a plea to the charge. Before being arraigned in the magistrate's court, Curry was dismissed from the Royal Bahamas Police Force. He returns to court on March 1st for a service of a voluntary bill of indictment. Now, Curry was allowed to leave the magistrate's court early due to an application for bail in the Supreme Court. Reporting for our news from the magistrate's court, I'm Georgia Bain.
The Minnis administration on the defense in the wake of heavy criticism of Attorney General Claude Bethel, who detailed government's plans to criminalize marital rape and put in certain protections for immigrants during a recent trip to Switzerland before sharing such in-depth policy plans with the Bahamian public.
I don't know that it is true to say that those announcements were made internationally before they were discussed here.
Last week, the Attorney General updated the United Nations Human Rights Commission on the Minnis administration's policy plans, including changes to the Sexual Offenses Act to address marital rape and amendments to the Bahamas Nationality Act. Bethel came under heavy fire from observers who questioned whether he had shared information in such detail on controversial issues with the United Nations before informing the Bahamian public. Today, the Deputy Prime Minister came to his defense.
You will know that just in the last couple of weeks, we've had a big debate going on here about these issues. And there has been some indications of the kinds of thought processes that we're trying to put into these decisions, and including people in the discussion.
Marital rape has dominated news headlines in recent weeks. This type of discussion, according to the DPM, is why one shouldn't accuse Bethel of informing international bodies like the UN before such pronouncements are made in the country.
I think it would be unfair to say that this was an announcement that was made overseas. You can make the argument that we have not had the formal public town meeting kind of consultation on it, but we've been having discussions in the media by questions, and we've been having private conversations with various stakeholders about the issues.
In a statement on Friday, the Attorney General dismissed such criticism as knee-jerk commentary and asserted that he had discussed those plans during numerous interviews with members of the media in recent months. Moving forward, Turnquist says government will work on more public consultation. I'm
comfortable that we're moving in the right direction in terms of involving the public. And as we get around to taking positions, I'm sure that there will be full consultation with the public.
A pedestrian is in serious condition in hospital tonight after police say the drivers of two vehicles struck him on Blue Hill Road near Palm Tree Avenue and kept going, leaving him for dead. Though initial police reports suggested that the man had died after being hit twice, he was still alive when our news arrived on the scene and was transported to hospital by ambulance with serious head injuries. Officer of the Police Traffic Division, Superintendent Craig Stubbs, says this is what police know so far.
Shortly before 9 p.m. tonight, police received a report of a pedestrian that was struck on Blue Hill Road in the vicinity of the Palm Tree Avenue. Responding units met an adult male lying in the western northbound lane of Blue Hill Road with significant head trauma to his body. Our initial report, we were briefed that two vehicles would have struck this pedestrian as he crossed. Neither vehicle failed to stop on scene.
Stubbs says police are interviewing one person who witnessed the accident in hopes of finding the two hit-and-run drivers. Based on the significant injuries sustained, the chief superintendent says he believes the drivers were speeding. Witnesses say the first ambulance to respond left the scene because the man was believed to be dead. However, Stubbs says the man was responsive when officers got there.
The ambulance were on scene. They would have conducted initial diagnosis of the victim. They saw no sign at the time, but from the officers who responded would have recontacted the police control room and noted that the victim was responding. He was breathing on his own, and he was his limbs and everything was moving. They were returned to the scene, and he's since been transported to PMH.
Potholes across New Providence continue to cause pain to road users. From burst tires to destroyed rims, many Bahamians know the struggle all too well. Jared Higgs checked out a few potholes on popular roadways and filed this report.
Potholes, potholes, and more potholes. It's a vexing issue that most Nasuvians are all too familiar with. Potholes like this one at the top of the hill on Mackey Street create a potentially dangerous situation on the road as cars try to avoid the trench, crossing into the opposite lane of traffic. Over on Shirley Street, a deep hole in the middle of the right lane catches some drivers by surprise. Whether they landed in the pothole or not, most motorists were not amused.
It's hard to say what you feel because they're everywhere now. And it seems as if there is no relief from them. And a person like me who was on the street all the time, who depend on my vehicle for my livelihood, it's a very vexing situation.
What do you think of that pothole? How do you feel about that pothole?
Oh my gosh, that was terrible. I thought my whole back wheel came off just now. The government really needs to do something with the potholes.
Well, the people who doing the construction on the streets, they need to, as they do their repair, they need to close up the hole right away because the drivers don't know exactly where the potholes are. The government is here to serve the people of the Bahamas, not to break up your vehicle, then turn around and end up having to fix it back.
Minister of Works Desmond Bannister announced his disdain for potholes during a contribution to the House of Assembly last October. At the time, he stated that he too was a victim of punctured tires and messed up rims. He appealed to Bahamians to utilize a Ministry of Works hotline to report pothole sightings throughout New Providence. That number is 302-9700. Bannister and all Bahamians seem to know that if the issue isn't fixed,
they can damage plenty cars.
Reporting for our news, I'm Jared Higgs.
Still to come with our news, the Department of Statistics launches preparations for the 2020 census. The details are after this break.